welcome to another episode of Wordspace Radio. My name is Billy, and joining me in the studio today is Megan.
Hello.
Ethan.
Hello.
And our special guest, Steve Toase.
Hi.
How's it going, mate? You okay?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Glad to have you on the show. You've come an awful long way, haven't you?
Come down from Firsk in North Yorkshire, so yeah.
Yes,
It's a little bit further than I think some of you guessed.
I think that's possibly the furthest anyone's ever come.
I think so, yeah.
Starting to feel like
Yeah, we'd like to hand out fake silly awards, so
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
your
excellent.
award.
I guess you get the award of
Furthest
Furthest
travelled.
travelled,
Yeah, that'll work.
Alright, awesome. Well, you brought an awful lot of stuff. Do you want to just tell everybody who's listening like a little bit about who you are as a writer and some information about what you're going to read today?
Yeah, I've been writing since about 2008. I came to it quite late. And my day job, I'm an archaeologist, and I tend to write flash fiction more than anything else. I don't write poetry. I've written a couple of pieces, but not much. So I tend to be known for flash fiction, and that sort of came around because I started doing the open mic nights, and I'd write these 2,000-3,000 word stories, and then it would be either reading the first half or the second half, and it never quite worked. So I must work up shorter and shorter and shorter until it fits quite nicely in a 5-minute slot. So do you want me to just start?
If that's what you want to do, mate. If you want to jump straight into it, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to start with a piece from a project called Hunt that I'm working on with Becky Cherryman, who you had before the summer.
Yeah.
And I know she told you a bit about it, but it's about people experiencing homelessness in Harrogate, which is I got kicked out of home when I was 16, and we've started this project. So the first bit I'm going to read is the Lapwing song. Sat by the skirting, Kenny peeled away wallpaper, shaping the pieces into wings, feathering the torn edges with cold fingers. Behind the rips, the plaster was damp, the colour of panstick. With long fingernails, he scraped it free into small piles by his feet. Picking up the powder, he pressed it between his palms and shaped the compaction to a small body and a tiny head. Into the powdered back, he pressed floral paper wings, watching them twitch to life in the draught. Dragging his hand down ceiling mould, he dotted eyes of spores onto the face, then touched the exposed brick beneath the windowsill and rouged the tiny bird's skin. Placed in the iron fireplace, the lapwing began to cough, but did not sing. The bird looked over at Kenny, and he started to give the creature his voice. First, he gave the lapwing his whispers, then his secrets, then all the stories from his childhood. Each word the lapwing took, it grew, a shudder of pale dust falling into the carpet. Each phrase it swallowed whole, swelling with the pressure. And as the bird swelled, pupils of mould turned to sapphire edged in gold, wallpaper wings fluttered to fine cluny lace. Rouged skin turned to delicate ruby feathers. Then the lapwing sang, and it sang of eloquences and springs, it sang of the genteel and the waters, it sang of tulips and tea blends, and when Kenny went to speak, the lapwing had taken all his words, leaving him no voice for his own story.
Wow. That was cool, dude.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was meant to sound more sincere than it is.
It's quite right.
Yeah, the accidental curse of inappropriately not meant sarcasm.
No, it's quite all right.
No, that was fantastic. So you weren't exaggerating. You write very, very short stories.
Yeah. I write a lot of stuff that's under 100 words, under 500 words. You know, so I do some longer short stories. I've had some published. I had a story called Call Out, which was published by Innsmouth magazine and then was selected for Best Horror of the Year anthology. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that was published alongside Neil Gaiman and various sort of Kim
I
Newman.
remember that actually. We were at Wordspace with that.
Yes.
one point,
Yeah.
I remember that.
And so yeah, you know, but a lot of my other stuff is very, very short, and these work really well. So this was the first piece I wrote for Hunt.
Yeah. I've not really read much like flash fiction, but it's nice to have like a really short thing, you know, that gives a massive impact to at the end. Like I really enjoyed that, and
I bet it's a totally different kettle of fish writing wise, trying to get a big idea into just a few words without it sounding rushed or.
Yeah, it's strange because I've written the first draft of a novel over summer, which is completely the other way. So everything just feels really baggy and loose, and you know, because I'm used to writing really compact stuff, but you can't maintain that for 120,000 words. You know, you've got to let it flow a bit more, and you write, you know, these bits. just feels wrong. It doesn't feel compact enough. So, but Haunt's going really well. We've actually got the anthology, which we're launching on Tuesday. I don't know when this will come out, but Tuesday, October 27th. And we're having readings in Harrogate, and it's been really good because the whole thing is about homelessness being hidden in Harrogate, how it's not visible, it's in houses where you can't really see it.
Yeah, I remember Becky talking about it. She got quite passionate about it towards the end of the podcast, and it sounds like a really cool thing you're doing.
It's working really, really well, and we've got stories by myself and Becky, but also by the participants. But one of the nice sort of spin-offs of that has been the local museum, the Harrogate Pump Rooms Museum. I don't know how well people know the town, have included the stories in their Harrogate Stories project. So not only are they recognising it as part of the story of the town, but it's actually quite symbolically important because that museum is sort of the heart of the town as a spa, and this idea of it being a healing place. So to have those stories included is a really strong step forward. So can I read another piece from the project?
Yeah, definitely.
So when we did it, one of the things I wanted to avoid was everything being modelling and just focused on homelessness. It's about how people experience that, and this is from my own experiences. It's based on something that did happen, and it's called Scarecrow. Leaning back in the room's only chair, the guitarist began to sing. She sang the carpet into furrows of clay and the light bulb into a pale sun. She sang 12 jolly dons into the already crowded bedsit. Through the floor erupted stick-tied men, the taint of mildewed coats filling the room. Around the window, shabby crows cluttered up the curtain rail. On a Monday outside time, she sang beauty between those four walls that lingered long after everyone left. When the day passed to night, I passed the night sleeping alone in a single bed, under a window too easily opened from the outside. Next morning I got up in my one pair of jeans, with my reduced money for the week, and I carried inside my chest one crow feather, a mildewed thread, and a clod of ploughed clay.
Wow. That was fantastic, mate.
Thank you.
Really cool. I like what you said about obviously you can't have it all be too dark and sad and everything. So there's an optimistic vibe in that, even though it's What was the line? She sang a light bulb into a sun.
Into a pale sun.
Yeah.
It's a friend of mine who I was at college with. I got kicked out just before my GCSEs, and I went through my GCSEs and my A levels, living in bedsits and quite vulnerably housed and living on income support as case to severe hardship. And my friend Becky, it was just a bank holiday Monday, came round, and she's a fantastic Becky Mills. She's a fantastic folk singer, and she came round and we just had guitar and a few drinks, and there was about 8 or 9 of us, and it was just one of those moments that's stuck in my mind ever since. And it's those things that you carry forward, when things are a bit rough.
The whole vibe of it, to me, for some reason, like I was picturing in my mind kind of Kerouac kind.
Yeah.
Have you ever read like On the Road and all those famous beat poets?
I haven't. No. I must admit that's something that sort of passed me.
I don't know why that was the images that I got, but that was just the similar kind of thing that I was imagining. The kind of like just cool beatnik type people.
Yeah. Lots of small pizzas, but I don't call that in the poem. It doesn't really fit with it. But yeah, it's been quite a powerful project because I think, like Becky said in hers, you're going back and meeting the person you were at that time, and you've changed so much, and I've got family now and all the rest of it. But it was it's the name Haunt really came around. We were trying to think of something, and it's about being haunted by the past of the town, which is the sort of dominating narrative of the town, and that makes it very hard for these other stories to be told. And also being haunted by your own experiences and the places you haunt, places you hang around. So that comes into it as well.
Yeah, it works on a lot of levels.
Yeah. So.
When you were like living in bedsits and everything, was that around Harrogate or?
Yeah, that was. I lived in three particularly. One was up around the back of the Majestic Hotel, which was tight. The first one was big enough to get a single bed in a chair and a wardrobe. And I got kicked out of there with 3 days' notice and ended up in FA. And really surreal experience. Which when I was talking to I moved to Tessa, who's producing the project for us, really sort of resonated with. I got kicked out and I had no way to move anything apart from by manpower. So we were moving this armchair through the Valley Gardens in Harrogate, pushing it up to where I was going to stop next, which was very, very surreal. Yeah. And you know, I sort of moved on when I was about 19. I met the person who's now my wife. We've been together sort of 20 years, and you know, moved to York after that. But yeah, it was quite an intense time, really. You know, very vulnerable, and you sort of haunted in lots of ways because you're haunted by your benefits, and you're haunted by, you know, that can be cut off, or you're haunted by your electricity. You know, a meter can go off, or people being in your house that you don't particularly want to encounter. You know, so there's lots of elements to it.
Especially around that age as well. Like obviously at any age it would be horrible to end up in a situation, but 16 was it? Like
Yeah.
It's a crazy age, isn't it? I suppose in half a way it's the best age for it though, because you're quite rebellious and full of fire at that age, and you feel like you know everything a little bit. But then at the same time, like you say, it's a vulnerable situation to be in anyway, and probably like the most vulnerable age of your life.
You think you're a lot more robust than you actually are, you know, looking back on it. But this was, you know, 22 years ago, so what we wanted to also do is talk to people who are in those situations now and get their experiences. And, you know, that's where we started doing the workshops, and we got participants writing stories, and the work's been absolutely fantastic.
So you've been like actively like getting people in who've had direct experience like you, and just seeing what you can all come up with together.
Yeah, you know, and using prompts about the town and how they relate to the town, you know, and using maps and taking them out on walks to talk about it and seeing what stories they can tell us.
That is ace. That's a really different way to try and get to, you know, get some creativity out of each other. You know, it's really cool to have this kind of practical element to it and everything.
Because I think one of the things that I felt was, if you can write a story about things and you can change the ending of a story, then you can change other things. You know, you feel you can change things that are happening to yourself as well. But you know, we've done it with the whole group of people who've been involved in mine. So the book is sized sort of in a pocket, so people who are street homeless can carry it with them. And you know, the font is from an old flyer advertising Harrogate from the 1920s as well. So you know, it's all sort of about embedding the stories within Harrogate and the narrative of Harrogate. So like I say, we're launching it next week, and then me and Becky are doing a read on the 11th at Speaker's Corner in York.
I've been hearing an awful lot about Speaker's Corner. Need to check it out. Keep getting recommended that. It's a shame we can't get the podcast out on time for it to be a bit of a plug for everything, but we won't have it out by.
That's quite all right.
At least we can plug the book in general.
And what we can do is we can put it on our page.
And the project's ongoing. We're actually going to be starting workshops again with people, and it's a transient group, so we'll have new people. Hopefully some of the old people will be involved, and we're actually looking at doing an installation and performance based on the work that's coming out of it as well. So that's really good, with, you know, iMove supporting us on.
If you want the performance recorded, we could probably collaborate.
Excellent.
You never know. That's something we could think of, isn't it? Cool. I mean, do you want to go on and read something else?
Yeah, the next piece is called Branch, and the inspiration for this is I wear glasses. I wasn't wearing my glasses in the car one time, not driving, I hasten to add, and I saw what I thought was a hitchhiker by the side of the road, and it wasn't. So pages. The first tree I saw hitchhiking, I nearly didn't stop. Not out of prejudice, you understand, but surprise. I pulled onto a hard shoulder and reversed. Her roots meant it would take an age to make her way down to the car. She was a young oak tree, all fluttering leaves and strong boughs. I asked if she had been there long. A year or so, no time at all. She asked if it was okay to smoke. Confused, I opened a window. Surely that's cannibalism or torture. She shrugged, more like a bacon sandwich, and tapped ash outside. Modern cars have no ashtrays. She was going to the city to meet some friends who were forming a covert on the bypass, so she said. See the bright lights, experience a big city, a change of pace in centuries of life. Over the next few weeks I picked up 3 more, a pine tree, a silver birch, and a lovely fragrant eucalyptus, all heading in the same direction. After that first lift, I lined the back seats with bin bags to avoid soil stains. I left a bottle of baby bio in the back passenger pocket to top up energy levels. Occasionally you would see saplings looking lost and cold, little leaf cover to shield them from the early morning frost. They took up no space at all. One time 30 crowded on the back seat, stretching out brittle branches to prevent movement in case of sudden braking. Most drivers ignored the trees jaded eyes failing to recognise their dislocation, unable to separate hitches from stray municipal shrubs. After a while, the sight of branches trailing out of windows and sunroofs became common, normal even. Speculation chattered as speculation does. Was this a reclamation told by the prophets of the Green Church? The sacrifice of brick and stone to leaf and bark? Mass hysteria, the St. Vitus dance of the environmentally aware? No one suspected this steady march of forest on town was a liberation army. First, they crowded stationers. Their roots could spread through solid rock. Glass doors and cinder block walls were no barrier. Elms and pine trees carried their children, packed into square blocks bound with the skin of others. Behind the rescue parties, thorn trees, both hoar and black, guarded the recovery. Then, they reclaimed the long dead. Over a matter of months, mature chestnuts entered house after house, suspending table and chair alike from outstretched bows. Ash trees spread their root mass behind wallpaper, peeling it off in uneven sheets, sticky with sap-filled tears. Books passed from veteran to sapling, balanced across flexing branch and held in dense canopies. 10 years ago they came to the city. Today the last ones left, taking with them the pulped corpses of children and ancestors alike. Mature pines stand guard between us and the woodlands, shallow-rooted and precarious. We watch them sway in the breeze, ready to sacrifice themselves to protect their children from the coppice and the pollard.
Wow, that was really cool, different. Like, such a strange concept to have come up with. But did you say that was just because you mistook a tree in a car?
I mistook a tree for a hitchhiker. I saw what I thought was a hitcher by the side of the road, and it wasn't. It was a tree, and it just got me thinking about it, and sort of triggered that as a train of thought.
Yeah, it's funny how such big concepts can come from such small things.
Yeah, you know. So and it's sort of, I quite like the turnaround in it. You know, it sort of starts off and people think it's quite laid back, and then turns into
it gradually became quite intense.
Yeah.
It started out as quite just a daft little, not daft, but just one of these little
Yeah.
like, so is it okay if I smoke? It's a chilled out kind of vibe thing, and it turned kind of avalanched as it went on, didn't it? Fantastic.
So it's but that's the sort of thing that I tend to write. I mean, about a couple of minutes long, and that goes down really well at the open mics as well. So.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on because we've seen you a few times at Wordspace.
Yeah.
And we really need to get you on for a while. Like I think it was around when we filmed Becky's podcast we were going to get you on, but then
at that time we were getting inundated with people and finding it difficult to manage everyone around the degree.
Yeah, and it's getting timetables sorted out as well, because I'm a stay-at-home dad. My little boy's starting nursery now, so I've got a little bit more flexibility. But again, it's getting over here and getting back.
Since you travel half the globe to come be on the show.
Yeah. So the next one I was going to read was one I read at Wordspace, and it started a conversation between me and Lynn. And this one's in the Inspiration anthology that came out. And I wrote it for a competition ages ago, and the theme was urban legends. It's more of an American urban legend called Bloody Mary, and it's about you've heard of it. Yeah, looking in the mirror and saying the name 5 times. So I use that as a starting point. It's called Glass and Mercury. Mary craves for light. She lives in a house of mirrors shrouded in darkness. The wait is endless until you gather in your cartoon pyjamas and badly applied makeup, saying her name by the dance of flickering candles. Then Mary crosses the floor to stare out at you, at a world forever beyond her reach. Mary will not hunt you down. She will not push you into traffic or drown you in dark water, no matter what your giggling friends say. Remember, your friends are always more scared than you, though they cover it with taunts and cruel names. Any blood on Mary's hands dried years ago. You can say her name 3 times, 10 times till your voice is a torn and ragged thing. She will never step down across your cluttered pink dressing table to stalk you through the shadows of your shadowed rooms of your parents' house. If she could leave through these walls of glass and mercury, Mary would walk in the sunlight, sit on immaculate lawns and smell the magnolia on the afternoon air. She would eat strawberries and cream, drink champagne with friends, maybe take a lover. It has been so long since Mary has been loved. Mary does not care if you say you killed her baby. She knows this is a lie. By now, time would have taken all of her children anyway, if cholera had not already placed them in the grainy earth. You will not see Mary haunting your dreams. The figure you glance at is a simulacra, a creature of moss and spit, as all dwellers in dreams are. If a Mary in your sleep claws at you, then it is because you claw at yourself. If she screams your name in the abyss, then it is you waking your siblings in fear and broken sleep. Mary does not care about you. She does not even think about you. You are a skittering thing that does not have the knowledge to free her. When you have gone, as you will, walking the path to womanhood, Mary will still be there in the darkness. While you build a comfortable life for yourself, Mary will wait for your children to call her name to the cold bathroom glass, standing in her house of mirrors, craving the light.
Wow. You turned that one on its head, didn't you?
Just a tad.
Yeah, you did. That's really
Yeah.
cool. You completely reversed the
It made you feel sympathy for Mary.
Yeah.
Usually she's the one who comes out and kills
Yeah.
you. So.
yeah. In the urban legend, there's no anything to her story really,
No.
other than she's nuts and she comes out and slashes your eyes if you make the mistake of saying her name, and you've added a lot of humanity to it.
But I think that's the thing, you know, there's an old sort of saw with storytelling that when you write villains, you know, they normally think they're doing the right thing, and I think approaching character in that way is sometimes really interesting to get that perspective.
Yeah, definitely the best villains are the villains that don't feel like they're doing wrong. They think
Yeah.
that they're either justified or it's for a warped version of the greater
Yeah.
good. That's what makes them scary,
Yeah,
and it makes them scary because they're relatable.
yeah,
So you've obviously taken that in mind, you know,
yeah,
rather than the kind of like villains of like, you know, Lord of the Rings, Sauron. He's just evil because he's evil.
yeah, yeah. You know, you've got to add that extra dimension. I mean, I'm a big fan of Neil Gaiman, who's very good at sort of doing that and taking that mythic
Yeah.
approach with different gods. So.
Yeah.
I can definitely see why Lynn was fascinated with that.
yeah. It was the one that she was really impressed with, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine it's right up her
Yeah.
alley.
Yeah,
Like,
I just love the idea though, because you don't think about stuff like that. You know, like Bloody Mary or what's the other one? It's like Candyman or something.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's Candyman was nicked from the Bloody Mary.
Was it? Yeah.
thing,
Those
yeah.
sort of things, like they just sort of exist as a legend. You don't actually think like why. Like I
Yeah.
love the idea of her like in a house and like, you know, you don't think about it that way. And
Yeah, there's
just-
certain horror characters who you just take on the value that they're evil,
Yeah.
scary, and never get thought about again. You
Yeah.
know, it's cool to just kind of like take a known character and impart some kind of a
Yeah.
backstory on them. You know, where it's cool.
one of the interesting things I've done with that is reading. My wife read it, and with a female voice, it changes it again
yeah,
because it's very female sort of centered,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think the urban legend is very focused on that as well.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. The next one is very short. Winter Solstice is Short Story Day. So what I've done the past couple of years is on the run up through December, on my Facebook page I've written a bit of flash fiction each day, and it gives me a big sort of pool of stories to then
That's cool.
submit and try and get published. This one's called Unsaid. It sort of follows on quite nicely actually, 'cause it's a bit of a different take on something. The invisible can see the invisible. He knew that, yet every house he went into, the corpses still surprised him. These giant, majestic creatures crammed into corners between overstuffed sofas and flickering TVs. Called by words of omission, then left to starve. Tethered by conversations carefully avoiding affairs and gambling problems. This time of year there always seemed to be more, young ones freshly arrived, tusks barely long enough to scrape the wallpaper. Birthed of topics avoided as relatives were welcomed across the threshold. Where he could, he dragged the dead ones into the street, rolling up his sleeves and summoning strength from the belief in him. The house owners didn't notice a smell of rot in the air, didn't notice they soaked in the fumes with every breath, clearing out these large grey beasts born of unsaid words and dead of neglect. This was his real gift to them.
Bit grim again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Most of my stuff doesn't tend to be on the cheerful side.
No, that's fine. We like the dark side.
We do.
So that one was just obviously about elephant in the room, and it was coming up to Christmas, so
Yeah.
this idea of Father Christmas basically going in and dragging out these.
So good. Love that. He's a bit weird, actually. Like, what gives him the right to just?
Yeah, he's,
Going to everyone's-
he's a criminal when you think about
Yeah.
it. He's like just mass breaking into people's houses.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Rare Exports films on YouTube?
No.
It was made into I can't remember the name of the film, but I think the film was called Rare Exports as well. But it was 2 shorts about going out and hunting wild Santa Clauses. And, I think they're Norwegian or Swedish, and fantastic, really really good. All both about 5 minutes long.
That sounds hilarious.
Definitely
To be
sounds
honest,
right.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's really really good. So that just sort of helps me keep my hand in, and then I have gone on and sold a few of those as well. So
Yeah.
It's a cool idea, like just setting yourself a time of the year when you know that you've got to be mad creative for a period. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you've got 24 hours to do it, so you're like it's getting close to the evening. You think, I haven't thought of anything yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you got to really like just kick the shit out of yourself to just get something done, don't you?
Yeah.
And, personal challenges like that are a good way to do it.
Yeah.
When I first started writing, the first few jobs I did was freelance writing for magazines, and that's quite good because you get a fixed word count and you get a deadline,
Yeah.
and you have to get it done. And if you go over your word count, you get spiked. It doesn't get published, and obviously the editor wants it on a certain time. Luckily, I've got quite flexible editors because I'm not amazing at that bit, but no, it's a really good discipline to get into. Is working to word counts and setting yourself deadlines
Yeah.
as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take that as some advice.
Yeah.
See, that's a good thing for us doing this show is we never really come away from a podcast without having a little bit of tangible advice. Just being on.
It's quite
so,
good,
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah,
And for anyone listening,
yeah.
I always
yeah.
get a little bit of advice.
yeah, all 3 listeners.
I'm sure I'll have a few more. You can share it around.
Yeah, I'll share it. Nice and wide.
Looking forward to December though now, because I've got you on Facebook now.
Yeah.
Be able to read those.
Excellent.
So you said that the winter solstice is short story day.
Yeah.
Do you
that's-
do some kind of open mic on that day, or?
I don't. I'm not actually directly involved in open mics. I'm
No.
part of a writers group in Firsk, but I do tend to go around to them a little bit less over the past couple of years. One reason or another. But yeah, there's some really good ones. Poems, Praise and Pints in Harrogate.
Is
And-
that Tim Ellis? Yeah.
Yeah, Tim Ellis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was set up by Jem Henderson, Nicola Everall, and Andy Backhouse a few years back, and I did the first night. Never read in public before.
Yeah.
Turned up with my short story, read it, finished, glared at everyone, and then got off. It got better over time.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's a good discipline as well because you hear it being read out, and you can tell if you're losing people's attention. Not to a point people getting up and walking out, but if it's not working. So.
Yeah, you can see if bits of it missed. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a different way of collecting notes on your work.
It is. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good discipline. Do you all go to Wordspace open mic?
Yeah, we never miss it really.
Yeah, no, we're there most months. Yeah.
Excellent. It was a really friendly night. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to start checking out a few more of them,
Yeah.
even if it's just for the sake of roping more people in.
Yeah, it's true because we've sort of not exclusively, but that's the only one we really have ever been to, just because obviously set up by the university, so we knew about it.
I've not been, but Word Club in Leeds is meant to be very, very good.
Yeah, people keep mentioning that, don't they?
I don't know.
Oh,
Possibly.
I think it was mentioned a few times anyway, but I've heard about it. So.
Do you want to read more, dude?
The next one I wrote a while ago. It was inspired by a dream. I was visiting friends in Spain, and I had a dream of a landscape that features in the story, which isn't unusual because my background, I'm a landscape archaeologist, so it sort of tends to be what I fixate on a bit. And it got published in a magazine called Pantheon magazine, and it's just been republished today in Writers for Calais Refugees, which has been putting stories online. It's going to be put into an anthology. So this is called Red Clay. From our cab, we saw the road obscured by thick red clay, a quilt of receding floodwater washed from crop-bare fields on either side. Every so often an abandoned possession poked up through the mud. A mobile phone long out of charge. 3 cheap, rusted pans. The frayed edge of a blanket hooked, flag-like, on the splintered corner of a bed. Beyond the blockage we saw what was left of families gathered. They looked for limbs and faces in the surface. Clay hardened to brittle porcelain in the break of the sun. There was no way for us to reach them. During the night the potters came, breaking off the crust and digging down to the still moist clay underneath. In plastic buckets they carried away as much as tired shoulders could bear, each tying the razor-sharp metal handles to thick rope draped around their necks. Rattan screams and rotten food were left proud of the clay as if the earth itself bristled at the potter's touch. Fingers still bleeding from moving rubble, the potters shaped red clay into coil pots. They crushed grog for each vessel from smashed fine china and computer monitors prized from the branches of a few remaining trees. By the roadside they built kilns with breeze blocks. Until the morning they fed the fires with wall slats, plaster brushed off into ant hills of dirty white powder. The next day the searchers came, each looking for one unblemished object. Such things were sparse: a single child's building block, a cheap plastic biro, an untarnished stainless steel butter knife. When found, the searchers placed each in a red clay pot. No letters marked the uneven surface. There were no names to remember anymore.
Nice one. That's a cool one for something for it to be sparked by something as small as just a landscape and a dream.
Yeah. It's basically I saw a road just with the clay washed over it, and then
Was it? Did you get a good story?
and get a good story. You know, it's can be quite random where the inspiration comes from, but it's just sometimes sitting on it and letting it grow a bit. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, getting it. And obviously, again, being an archaeologist, that's where the pottery sort of comes into it. You know.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think that aspect of your life influences your work a lot, or is that story a bit of a one-off?
It does bits and pieces. I've written stuff that's more directly influenced by experiences of working in sort of commercial archaeology. But I think the thing that it really sort of solidified for me is everything's about storytelling. The difference between archaeology and what I do now is archaeology's storytelling, it's got to be based on the evidence, whereas now I can just make it all up, which is, a big advantage. But yeah, it does. It has had a huge influence on the way I approach
That's
things.
an interesting way to look at archaeology, though, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Though, because you are like just trying to pull up portions of a story and fit it together, I guess.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the work I did when I was doing my MA, was looking at how people experience landscape and how they physically experience that and how we can see that in the evidence. So, is it different if you're old? Is it different if you've got if you're disabled? How does that change through people's lives? So, that's obviously then coming to my writing quite a bit as well.
Yeah,
so.
I can totally see that. That's obviously bled through quite a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
super cool.
So, the next one's a bit different because, as you could probably tell, most of mine are quite sort of magic realist and mythic.
Yeah.
And this one's a bit more of a straight one, and it's we spend quite a lot of time out in Munich in Germany, and it's based on something we saw there. And at the time, my son was breastfeeding as well. It's influenced by that. There's 2 German words in it, or 2 German phrases. One's Augenweide, which means sight for sore eyes, and one's Ausstellung, which means exhibition. Title's Augenweide. Melina clung the infant to her chest, hands stroking his head to ease the tears until the milk did its work. She could see the old man glancing, well, more just staring if she was honest, making a joke with his son and daughter-in-law to be. Melina stared out her window and wondered if he would watch a pale girl in the same way while she fed his grandchild, passing comment about Ausstellung and Es ist eine Augenweide. She knew he would, and her marrow blackened with the frostbite of that certainty. At that moment she wanted to take the girl's hand, bring her over to the table and say, "Come with me. Come with me and drink coffee with those who laugh at movies instead of other people and are scared by masks because of what they can hide. Come and sit with me and hold my boy's hand." His name is Florian. Feel his nails against your palm as he flexes his fingers, and know the beauty of this. Leave this old man to his creeping jokes, and his son to his silence. But Melina knew she would not, and the girl would not, so she moved her son, pulled her shirt down, wiped his mouth and stroked his head until the milk did its work.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I really like that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. There's something really, really true about that.
Yeah. Some of those silly issues that shouldn't be an issue, but for some people it is a massive issue that it's
Yeah.
wrong.
I
but
just
how
like-
is it?
I just liked the whole, let's get this girl away from somebody who's just going to belittle everything and laugh at the wrong stuff. You know,
Yeah.
come with me and laugh at what we're meant to laugh at, enjoy what we're supposed to. You know,
Yeah.
it's a cool message to have got into such a short piece.
Thank you. And find the joy in life, you know, and,
Yeah.
and leave people who are going to, have those viewpoints to themselves. you know.
Yeah, just don't need people who are gonna just crap all over everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Never good.
Do you speak German?
A little bit. We've got a place out there, so yeah, I get by. It's getting better.
Yeah.
Every time I come back, I think, I've got to learn more, and I never get around to doing
Yeah.
it. So
I was just thinking when you said it sounded convincingly German to
yeah,
me. anyway.
I can manage about 3 words. I once went into a hotel and I'd practice this phrase, and I was going to get this right, and went in and did it perfectly. And then they assumed I could speak more German than I could, and it just all went to shit after.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look too confident, they think that you're fluent, and they're just like, "Oh no, I only knew that sentence."
Yeah.
And this one explaining it.
So no, it's good. I mean, I love it over there, but that was inspired by something we saw in a cafe. So it's getting that inspiration from
Yeah.
the encounter.
Yeah, you seem to be quite good at just taking inspiration wherever you can.
Yeah, I think you just keep your eyes open and see it where you can, and the little things that look out of place or strike you as unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always
absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah.
I suppose travel into places like Germany where there's obviously going to be language differences. It always adds to a little bit of a
And the social and cultural differences, I think sometimes because it's so subtle, because we're westernised and they're westernised, you actually notice them slightly more. It's like a little glitch that sort of catches your eye sometimes.
Yeah.
Any examples?
I'm trying to think of ones now. I mean, the big one when you go over there is the difference between du and sie in the language, and how when you sie, which is a formal one, it's very formal, and it's Herr and Frau and Mr. and Mrs. And it's quite, there's a distance. But when it's du, everything's on the table, and they'll talk about anything. When it's that informal, when you're a friend, they will ask you about anything. But it's a fantastic country, and we've got very good friends over there, and really supportive, and people. We got stranded over there during the volcano.
Oh, when kicked up all the
Yeah,
ash.
yeah. We'd been in a hotel. Obviously our hotel come to the end. We'd gone to the airport. We couldn't fly, and then our friends put us up for 7 days until we could fly.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So free extra half your holiday.
Yeah. It was really good.
That's the thing. I remember seeing that on the news, and everyone was whinging and getting a knickers in a twist about it. It's
Free
like,
holiday.
come on, at least you stuck somewhere nice.
Yeah.
I think of all the poor sods that are stuck in England.
Well, we had it the other way. We flew out this summer, and our plane had been struck by lightning on the previous flight. So they couldn't fly us out, and we ended up near the back of the queue as they were assigning the next flights out, and we had to fly 3 days later from Stansted, which was at Manchester. So we had 3 days at an airport hotel, all paid for. At Stansted with a 3-year-old. So that's in a story. I'm currently working on a story about that one as well. But yeah, it's just again getting that inspiration where it comes up. Talking about inspiration, the next one, I've got a friend in Germany she's back in Canada now, called Hazel Ang, who's a fantastic artist. And last year she was having an exhibition launch, and me and another writer called Lynn Hardiker had recently had work published in the same anthology. So we did a reading at her launch. Seeing Hazel's work inspired this one, which is called Seeing with Pollen. Throughout summer, the eyes of the boy and the girl bloomed, petals of red and azure-edged hidden pupils. They walked in walled gardens and glass houses of humid air, skin scented with honeysuckle, and brushed with pollen. Faces tickled by the kiss of bees and the whisper of butterflies. Autumn came. Petals curled and fell to the ground to be trampled into the lawn. Food for worms. Upon the frosted grass, irises shattered like glass in the cold. Winter clawed across the field, dragging itself on broken plough furrows. Stumbling through the woods, the boy and the girl leant upon each other. Neither had eyes, just brittle stems and rose thorns that lay upon their cheeks and scratched their skin. In the darkness of tree trunks they held each other close and curled away from the world, away from the breath of wolves and the shout of snow. Winter was long and spring came slowly. When the ice melted, the boy and girl bloomed flower buds from their eye sockets. They saw each other as if for the first time, and as the bees returned to skim across their lips, they fell in love once again.
Fantastic. That was very strong, powerful imagery.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I mean, that just comes from the paintings, you know, and it's a pretty direct sort of rendition of the artwork, but, you know, it's...
So is that based heavily on one particular piece that she'd done? Or?
Yeah, there's a piece where it's a boy and a girl, or a man and a woman, holding each other and got these flowers for eyes, and then the eyes inside, and it's absolutely amazing, you know, piece of artwork. And yeah, it's just, I love working with art. I love being inspired by other disciplines. So rather than a lot of writing, you know, it's art and music.
Yeah. I remember doing a great workshop on the Writers' Festival they had here, where it was just they were putting up lots and lots of famous paintings and photographs from a variety of different, you know, types of artists and everything, and we just had to write short stories about each one.
Right.
And I think everyone came up with something very, very different from the same paintings. It was great, just showing the subjectivity of art, and you know, by making creative people create their own thing off the back of it, and it feeds in some really interesting, you know, interesting ideas.
I mean, one of the exercises we do at our writing group, sometimes if there's about 10 or 13 of us, we'll each put in a word, and then we have to write a piece, and it has to include all those words. You know, it can be very random, like lamppost or dog, or what was the one we had? Cockpit, you know. So everyone's piece is always really different. You think that it would really limit it, but yeah, it's the way different people approach it is really interesting.
They're always good, those exercises.
No, we've been a few where you get 3 words and you have to come up with the keys story between them.
They're always a laugh, aren't they?
They were great. They saved me last year. Had no idea what I was going to do for my portfolio. Couldn't think of the last 1,000 words, and then we did that, and I got a really good piece out of it. And Martin was like, loved it, and I'm like, sorry. But yeah, it's really good for, you know, a little starting point.
Yeah,
I suppose we all ought to make some friends with some artists. I guess that's
it does help. It does help because you blast ideas off each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really good. There's an exercise I think Becky's doing where a writer will send a piece to an artist, and the artist will do a painting, and that will go to another writer, which is fantastic because you get this, you know, sort of chain.
Yeah,
of
it's kind of
creativity.
cascade of how they, you know, see what's remained and what's changed, and
Like Chinese whispers, but with words.
I bet that'd make
Pictures.
something really cool, actually.
Yeah,
in the end.
Yeah, it sounds like a fantastic project.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested actually to see the painting that you had in mind there. Maybe if you could email us a snap of it or something.
Sure. Yeah.
When we put this on YouTube, we can stick the painting itself up,
definitely.
and that'd be cool. Bit of free publicity for you, mate.
Yeah, excellent. We've got time for any more? Or?
Got as much time as you like. We aimed at 40 minutes and we've gone past it, but there's no reason why you can't stick around if you're enjoying yourself. We are.
If you're happy for me to
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, the next one actually is another one from the stories that I write over December. And this one's called Masks. And this one was published in an online magazine called Gory-esque, which is stories in the sort of tradition of Edward Gorey. 100 foliate faces stared down from the walls as Helen sat in the cafe. watching the man disturb paths of passers-by walking upon the pavement. She couldn't hear what he was saying. She didn't need to. Sometimes expressions shouted louder than words. Angry faces wore hatred like a carving. Reaching behind her for a plate, she opened the fridge and took out that morning's bacon. With a bronze knife she cut the oatcake into mouth-sized pieces. Agrimony and black snake roots stained the blade. Shutting the front door, Helen held the samples in front of her. "Free taster," she said. The man made some comment she took no notice of and snatched more than one piece of cake from her plate. Helen watched him chew and swallow. Leaf buds appeared from the corners of his mouth, but she knew from previous times the growth started deep in his torso, a twist of branches finding a way out through narrowed throat muscles. Leaves unfurled between skin and bone, staining his face green, leaking chlorophyll into the whites of his eyes. He stumbled as roots locked his limbs into position. Helen reached out, gently laying a hand upon his arm. "Come into the cafe. We'll soon get you sorted," she said, trying to remember if a wood saw needed sharpening.
Ace.
That's advertising, isn't it?
You do definitely have a magical realist vibe. Yeah, I didn't even click until you mentioned it, and I've been thinking that, like, while I was listening to that one and then thinking about your other pieces, you were obviously very magical and realist influenced, aren't you?
Yeah.
The
And
kind of not making any reference as to whether this is actually happening or, you know, that kind of bizarreness.
no, I think it works better. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of sort of otherworld fantasy, you know, things like that come from Tolkien-esque type world. But things set in this world, I'm really into authors like Charles DeLynn and Robert Holstock, and Margaret Atwood, Angela Carter. Angela Carter, I'd love to write like Angela Carter.
That wouldn't be all. Let's be fair. I don't think there's anyone who'd pass that up.
No. But I think just, you know, that's the way the world is, and you just accept it in the story, you know.
Yeah.
As long as the world has an internal logic and it works, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it does make it. It gives you so much creative freedom to just be completely bonkers, and it all still feels right. Like Angela Carter, obviously, the earlier one of hers I've read is Night at the Circus.
Yeah.
But that's a great example of, you know, how far you can push the limits. As soon as you decide to be a little bit magical realist, you can really bend the limits of what's okay to put into a text.
Yeah.
You know,
And
have it still make sense.
Burning Your Boats, which has the fairy tale retellings in like Puss in Boots and the various versions of Bluebeard. It's just astonishing. Her writing's so rich, and you look at it and you try and work out. No, can't quite get that, you know, figure out how it works, because by the time you've read it and tried to, do you ever do that? You start reading something to try and work out how it works, and you're like, oh, I've finished the story, right? I'll go back and try again.
Yeah, sometimes you do. You can't get out of the writery mindset, and you kind of deconstructing the thought process of all the pieces, I guess, aren't you? And yeah, it does happen from time to time. Yes, well, you've still got some pieces left. How many have you got?
How many more did I bring? I think I've just got one left.
I was going to say, if you've not got many at this point, you might as well just finish. You know, just do all of them if you want.
Yes, yeah, if that's all right.
Yeah, great stuff.
So, are any of you afraid of clowns?
Yes. Extremely.
Are you?
Nice.
Yeah.
Cover your ears, maybe.
I'm
It's
really
okay.
sorry.
As long as they're not here,
Okay.
it's fine.
It's funny you say that, because if you look at it,
That's not funny, and you should go away.
you should leave Bobo. She's not interested.
And the International Society of Clowns, I can't remember the exact name, record clown faces in a certain way. It'll come clear in the story. I stumbled on the photographs of this and it inspired this. It's called The Delicacy of Laughter. After the faces appeared on the eggshells, I could no longer bring myself to cook with them. In the dark, they manifested like daguerreotypes, a little more visible each time I opened the fridge. I tried watching, but nothing happened. When I shut the door, they developed on the shelves. Sepia lips here, a a strand of tears running down a cheek there, ovoid Turin shrouds. While I was away for the weekend, I left them sealed in the cold and the dark. The masks coloured themselves in. Each was unique. All had red noses, but that was where any similarity ended. One was a bulbous snout of whisky, another a dab of colour on the tip of an upturned pixie nose. Triangles and lines bisected eyes, lips outlined in black or red, stretched back to reveal crooked teeth. I thought about leaving them where they were, nestled at the back of the fridge between juddering motor and slightly rotting veg, but they made a good talking point. In an antique shop on the high street, I found an old wooden box, fine wire mesh for a door, and placed it in the middle of the dining table. I nestled each egg inside a chiselled out hollow, smoothed by generations of the unfertilised. A few weeks later I threw a dinner party for some friends in the neighbourhood. The eggs were a talking point, as I hoped they would be. After a few bottles of wine we got them out, giving them different voices, squeaking words, holding the shells up like puppets. Brian played Entrance of the Gladiators, hitting the wrong notes on purpose. Then Marie nipped back to her house and got some face painting makeup she used at kids' parties. We decorated each other, copying the clown designs on the eggs, upturned lips and rouged cheeks, arched black eyebrows raising almost to our hairlines. Finished, and too drunk to clean our skin, we put the eggs back in their box, turning them inwards so they didn't look into the darkened room. In the morning all the eggs were turned, clown designs facing forward. The door of the egg box hanging loose on broken hinges, edges sticky with thick white foundation. Someone must have woken in the night and torn it loose, I thought. I straightened the fine metal plates, tightened the small crosshead screws. Turning the eggs back round to face inside the box, I latched them inside. I never stayed that way. I'm not sure when the first one hatched. I hadn't looked at them for a couple of days. On the floor I found a shatter of shell held together by thin stained membrane. Albumin and glitter trailed across the carpet towards the skirting board. I tried to clean it up, but no amount of scrubbing would shift the mess. Over the next week 4 more hatched, leaving the same trails of afterbirth across the room. I heard them moving in the walls, oversized shoes with toe caps of cartilage scraped against the wires as they practiced their tumbling routines in the cavities. They didn't emerge during daylight. On mornings I came downstairs to find birds strangled with strands of banana skin, balloon animals made from mouse intestines with their inflated throats ripped out, furniture stained with a powder that was a cross between rouge and brick dust. Yesterday I found glitter trailed across my pillow, stuck to the cotton with some kind of organic glue that smelt of rendered fat. I tried the front door, but the key was snapped off in the lock, the telephone filled with stagnant water. I heard them laughing in the walls. This morning I found the last egg broken, the hatchling no longer inside. I hear them running behind the sofa. If I turn on the taps, there's only sawdust. All the food in the fridge is rotten. They keep singing me out of tune lullabies, and I find juggling balls shaped from crushed plaster and bone. They're getting bolder. Soon they will start their skit. I dare not sleep.
Neither will I after that.
I'm sorry.
You know, that was like genuinely creepy as balls.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Love that.
So clowns lay eggs then.
Oh, just imagine if they did that. No, they shouldn't.
You've broken Megan.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah, they do. They record the designs on. They used to be proper blown eggs, and now they're ceramic eggs.
All right.
And
Yes,
it's
you said the International Society of Clowns.
Why is that a
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, is
It
that a
or
thing?
Clowns International, I think it's actually called, which is even stranger. It does sound like some kind of clown secret agents
Yeah.
society.
I'm baffled that that's even a thing, but there you go.
Especially
the
on
truth is
eggs.
sometimes strange.
Like, you know, you
Yeah.
think they'd pick a mask or something.
Yeah, why eggs?
I don't know. It's just one of those things I think an individual did, and they went with it. You know.
Wow.
Fair enough.
But I love how it came to an idea like that. That was creepy as you said.
It
that
reminded
was.
me of, have you seen It by Stephen King?
I've got to confess I haven't.
Right. And then Gremlins, he was to sing
Yeah,
Gremlins.
yeah.
It reminded me of if It and Gremlins
Had a child.
had a weird baby in the story,
Yeah.
that would be it. Which is a good thing. I'd watch that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
That would make a good movie.
Yeah, I really liked how they were sort of like, you know, small pranks at first. But
Yeah.
you can see it's going to gradually get.
Murdery.
Yeah.
Murdering. I like
I
that.
really like the build up.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I'm definitely going to sneak into your house and
You're
paint all
not.
eggs.
If you
It's
do
mischief
get-
night coming soon, isn't it? So.
There you go.
Oh no.
I'm going to paint all of your eggs and hide them around your house.
Genuine fear now.
Oh, that's brilliant. You've come over, you've broken Megan.
Excellent. I can go home now.
You see, you can go home
Yeah.
happy.
Did you, Joe?
Well, we've got through all of your work, haven't we?
You have, yeah, yeah.
Ah. Well, it's been fantastic having you on.
Really
Thank you
enjoyed
for
it.
inviting me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks
and,
for coming all.
Oh,
all the way.
it's good. It's good. It's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a good time. We'll be excited to see you at some open mic night soon. I'm sure we'll be finding each other one day.
Excellent.
If you've
Yeah.
got anything to plug at all, go for it.
The main thing at the moment is Haunt really. So we've got the launch. We've got work in the exhibition at the Royal Punt Room Museum in Harrogate until April, I think.
Yeah.
So that's worth going along to if people want to read the work. We've got a small exhibition inspired by the work we've done, and we're going to be doing various promotional things about that.
Well,
coming up.
we'll 100% keep our eye on what you're doing with that.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
We'll advertise it on our Facebook page and obviously have links to it as well when we put the podcast
Brilliant,
up.
yeah.
So.
And apart from that, got my sort of own Facebook page and doing bits and pieces, having bits published. You know, most of my stuff gets published online, but yeah.
I'll put link to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the links and stuff will be in the doobly doos.
Brilliant.
All right. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for that.
Cheers.